Over the past 8 years, when I have been asked what I do for a living, I always explain I help people prepare for, find, and keep employment. I work mostly with deaf and hard of hearing people. Many of those deaf people use sign language to communicate. There have been a couple times that I have gotten response to that saying, deaf people. So, do you know how to lip read? There was even a time that I was told by someone who I told what I do for a living that they said, "So, do you know Braille?" My response to the question of if I know how to lip read was that I have many clients who are deaf who lip read very well, and I also know other deaf people outside of work who lip read well. I would probably not be very good at lip reading. I communicate in my everyday life using spoken English, and when I communicate with someone who uses sign language, we communicate back and forth in sign language. I have no need for learning to lip read. And with the Braille, I explained Braille is for people who are blind to to read in paper, written communication. Um, And I don't believe I know any deaf people who know Braille, and I do not know Braille. That's another thing that I have not had a need to learn and have not taken the opportunity to learn. Many deaf people, you could call them lucky, you could call them unlucky, but many have had hours of speech therapy where they have learned to pronounce the different sounds that we make when we speak. I will share my screen right now to show what that looks like. Pictures of kids going to speech therapy. So this is what it looks like for a child in speech therapy. Um, a lot of looking at what the mouth looks like when making the different sounds that we make when we communicate. And in that speech therapy, a lot of times I haven't experienced it as a hearing person, but I have heard they learn what other people's mouths look like as they're learning how to make the mouth movements themselves and learn how to lip read when learning how to speak without hearing their own words themselves. If you watched my video about cued speech, you know that 30% of the English language can be read on the lips clearly. And with um, when someone has a lot of facial hair covering their mouth, or when they mumble when they communicate, it makes it even more challenging to understand lip reading. So having a distracting background, being in a distracting environment when communicating with someone who has a big bushy beard and they mumble a lot, I would imagine is nearly impossible to lip read in that situation. There are people who hear better in either a higher frequency or a lower frequency. So those who have more hearing, more residual hearing in higher frequencies might be able to understand more of a woman's voice and rely on lip reading less when trying to communicate in spoken English with a woman versus a man. Some deaf people have more residual hearing in lower frequencies, so they would understand a man's voice better than they would understand a woman's voice and rely on lip reading for that extra understanding of the communication, rely on lip reading more with a woman than a man. Um, and more, um, I understood lip reading and what is missed when trying to depend on lip reading. When my 6-year-old son, when he was 4, I took him for a speech therapy evaluation, because he was, not fully pronouncing some different words. So at the end of his speech evaluation, I found out that he was just getting lazy when making the sounds that we make with the back of our throat. I didn't realize they were back of the throat sounds as a social worker. I'm not a speech therapist. Didn't realize the sounds that we make, and where they come from. But the S, the TH, the F, and the F, um, those sounds, I guess, are made in the back of the throat. And with practice of making those sounds, my son is now clearly communicates all of the time in spoken English, making all of the different pronouncing words accurately. Um, but the the different sounds come from different parts of our mouth and um, can't 100% be read on the lips. So lip reading is a lot of guesswork for those who get good at it. So when you are communicating with someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, and the person is lip reading in the communication, make sure that you look directly at the person. Try not to mumble, and add gestures or other visual communication. Use any sign language that you know, when communicating with those people if they use sign language to communicate. And it's always best to ask a deaf person, what do you prefer in helping with our communication? Would they like you to write down words that they don't fully understand when you're saying? Um, or would they like something else in order to help the communication? Move to a room that's less distracting, if that's possible. It's always best to ask the deaf person that you're communicating with, to better improve that communication. So until next time, I am Jessica with Agape Pa, and hope you have a great rest of your week.